Rita, universities, the UFT, other groups have courses in Yiddish. As far as I know, they don't have courses in Italian. There isn't
Why
that
not?
same, because obviously there isn't that same feeling.
Because there are the places you can get Italian very easily.
No.
And there aren't that
Who
many
was I
places you can
talking
get
to the
Yiddish.
other day
They
was
got
Italian.
Spanish courses, they have all
Plenty
kinds
of
of
Italian courses.
Plenty of, look
They
for
have,
the adult education.
no, Rita, they have Spanish
I don't want to
courses.
argue with you,
No,
but
they
that
have
isn't
Spanish courses for people who
How
want
did
to
all this
learn
start? What was the
Spanish.
meeting about?
true. Why?
People
How
who
did all of this begin? What was the meeting about?
No,
There was a series of 3 plays
Oh,
on television which dealt with the problems of getting old.
oh,
And they took place in Florida. One that Rita has referred to is where this woman is old but very independent. She doesn't want any help. She doesn't want to live with her children. She wants to be independent. At some point she falls and breaks a leg, right? No, it breaks a hip. And they have to put pins in, all the usual things. And they finally get her home, and all the children are gathered
They
in
think
the
she's
kitchen.
sleeping,
Right.
and that's the
And
way
they're
the
gathered
kitchen
in the kitchen as to what should we do with Mama, right? Because, one lives in New York and one lives here, and they can't keep running to see what's doing with Mama all the time. And Mama won't want to live with them, and they don't want Mama to live with them, right? So what should we do with Mama? And they decide that the best place for her would be a nursing home, right? And in the meantime, they have a fight with each other as to whom the mother preferred when they were growing up, and what she did for this one, and what she did for that one. It's not important. But when it comes, they all decide finally that actually there's no other way out but to put her in a nursing home. The only question is that they know that their mother is very opposed to a nursing home. Who's going to be the one to tell her, right? That's the big problem. Now, she has been listening to this all along, and of course she's very, very upset at the attitude of her children, and she is determined that she is not going to a nursing home. Come what may, she is not going to a nursing home. And she's in bed because she can't move, and she decides that she has to go to the bathroom. And she doesn't call on any of them to take her, but you see her struggling to get off the bed, and the pain that she's in, to prove to them that she can take care of herself, that she doesn't want to go into a nursing home. That's one story. But the story that caused the most comment,
how did that?
that's the way it ends. That's the way it ends. I mean, the children realize that they're not going to get her into a nursing home.
Sounds like she just needs someone to stay with them.
Did they ever discuss that, by the way? I meant to ask you.
Having somebody stay with her.
Yeah.
I don't think, yes, they did, and they said she won't accept anybody. She would be too critical, that she wouldn't, accept anybody.
It reminded
their
me
way.
so much of my mother,
Yeah,
that's
right.
why I asked
Very,
that
very,
question.
very
Right.
normal.
The other one, which caused a lot of comment, is about a retirement community in Florida, where they have all kinds of activities. You've been down to Florida, so that you know, especially these retirement places have a million clubs, right? So one of the clubs that they have is the Yiddish Club. And the Yiddish Club is a lot of nostalgia. People go there because they want to recapture something that went out of their life. The way their mother and father spoke to them, the language that they grew up with originally, whatever it is. And this man and woman meet in this club. The man's wife is not at all interested in a Yiddish club. As far as she's concerned, that's Greek. She doesn't need Yiddish. So he goes alone.
Deadline.
It's a dead language. The woman's husband is also not interested in Yiddish. He has one passion, gin rummy. So a whole day he plays gin, and that's enough
And
for
the
him.
stamps.
And he has a stamp collection, and that's enough for him. So this man and woman go to this Yiddish club, and they get to talk to each other, and they get to know each other quite well, and they speak Yiddish to each other. And pretty soon she's telling him that she always dreamt of traveling. So he says, so, why, did you ever travel? She said, once we went to Israel, and my husband hated it, and that's all, so we've never gone any other place. But I always dreamt of traveling. And he says, me too, I always wanted to travel. She said, so why didn't you travel? She said, well, at the beginning the children were too small and we couldn't leave them. And then they grew up, he says, and my wife had a stranglehold on them with a telephone wire. She was always on the phone telling them what they should do and how they should live. So she can't leave the children, right? So she still can't leave the children. So there they are. Anyway, this develops into a real romance. That the Yiddish club only meets 3 times a day. He decides that 3 times a week is not enough. They've got to see each other every day. So they also join a bicycle club, which meets every day, so they can go bicycling. And it reaches the point where he tells her that he's going to ask his wife for a divorce, and he wants to marry her. And she says, don't talk to me like that. And she runs away and goes up north and spends a couple of weeks with her children up north and comes back. And the love is burning, right? What do you do? So of course the 2 spouses are very upset because both of them asked for a divorce. The one whose wife was not interested in Yiddish picks up a knife and threatens to commit suicide. And they call down all the children from both sides to discuss the matter. And he convinces them that they have no rights discussing the matter, that it's his life, it's their life, they don't know how many years they have to live. For whatever number of years they have to live, they want to be able to do the things that they want to do. That they are entitled to do them, that they don't owe the children anything at this point in life. The only people they owe anything to is themselves. And they go off into the sunset. So this created, of course, a lot of discussion among people like we know, who would be of an age where...
Possibly when this could happen.
So is it fair, both of them have been married some 45 years. Is it fair after 45 years, regardless of what the situation is, to leave your spouse and go off and make a new life for yourself?
Yep. Yeah,
I didn't ask you. I'm afraid to ask you.
That's the
I'm
answer.
afraid that you were going to be afraid of it.
Well, so what's,
Maybe that's the...
There is no answer.
Put it on there.
well, I'm asking what you think. I didn't ask for the absolute final word.
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's fair, frankly. I mean, I'm not saying that the marriage in each case was ideal, but it wasn't ideal the day before either, right?
Right.
Maybe 10 years before either. So, I don't know.
At what point is it okay? At what age?
The point is that at that age, whoever is left alone, what have they got to look forward to? As this woman who is going with him remarks, that she doesn't worry about her husband. This is a retirement community. She said, in that nest of widows, he'll find somebody, right? But the woman,
That's fine.
but the woman is liable not to find somebody, right? And whatever it is she did or didn't do, she gave 45 years of what she thought was devoted service, right? Even if it was cleaning and cooking and serving. So what has she got to look forward to?
But do people owe things to each other? I mean,
I think so. I think that a commitment is a commitment.
But you don't own anybody.
right.
That's the thing to remember, that just because you made a commitment and you have a marriage license or whatever, you don't own that person.
Well, you said for better or for worse.
Yeah, but you don't believe, but there are other options for married couples.
You know, I don't hear anymore this better for worse. I've been
Did
for
we
a couple
talk
of
about
left.
Well, for better and to worse until we decide to
You
end
know,
the
I've been to a
relationship.
couple of marriages.
That's
Right.
That's
For better or for worse, but
I mean,
not forever.
obviously,
For better or
divorce
worse,
is
but
legal.
not forever.
Well, divorce is
No,
legal,
the
so.
truth is, I
on the
haven't heard that.
Under Jewish law, you don't have any, that marriage ceremony that you hear is not a Jewish marriage ceremony. There is nothing in the Jewish marriage ceremony that says for better, for worse, from death to us
I'm
part.
telling you. I know.
It isn't, it isn't. A Jewish ceremony is a strictly business matter. You have what they call now a ketubah,
Yeah,
which
they leave
outlines
from it,
what the rights of the wife are and what the
Right.
rights of the husband are, and that's all. It's a business arrangement. There is nothing in there.
Well, I was gonna say businesses fold up after 45 years, you know, and you're out in the streets, so.
Right.
Listen,
Well,
these
But
things happen to-
nothing is guaranteed in this life, that's all.
It's not a question of guaranteed or not guaranteed. There are certain things that parents do, right? Which doesn't necessarily, they don't necessarily do what they want to do. They very often do things for what they think is for the good of the children, right? It may even hurt them personally, but they feel a certain commitment to their children. I think that a husband and wife, particularly after 45 years, owes each other a commitment, right? I mean, you know, what is it gonna be, a new romance after 45 years?
I think that all depends upon how you grew up and what kind of background you come
No,
from.
not really,
And what,
not really.
yeah. Well,
All the
I'm
people
telling
that are
my
getting,
opinion.
all the people that are getting a divorce today, and the rate of divorce is really pretty horrible, did not grow up in families where there was divorce. Most of them grew
I
up
don't
in
mean it
families where
comes
there
from,
was
but
no.
if you were instilled as a young child about a certain moral, a certain obligation, a certain thing, and you grew up with this, it's very hard for some men as well as women to part company after a certain amount of years unless the situation gets so grave that they really can't stand
Well, this is
each
the
other.
point,
But there are many relationships.
this was not where the relationship was necessarily
But there was
bad. It was just a
He
nothing
said
kind of
you do
relationship.
nothing for
And
me.
probably after he met the woman, he saw what the relationship was
What a
really
relation
like.
could be.
Right. And he decided
I
to settle.
wonder how long that relationship really
Well, that
could
is-
last.
Well, it's a
Well, then
story
that's a different
anyhow.
question, that's a
Right.
whole different issue.
That's another
You have to
story.
admire him too, because I think most people don't do things for themselves out of guilt that they really should do for themselves, and you
I
have to
don't know,
admire
where do you
him for
get that
going
should or
ahead.
should not? I mean,
No, I'm
who
saying,
determines
have a
that?
chance to make a better life for themselves.
Yeah, but
and-
what, okay, should you
I'm not
make-
saying just as far as relationships
Well,
goes,
but
but in a lot
I
of
am talking
ways.
about relationship. Are you entitled to make a better life for yourself on the basis of making a worse and hurtful life for somebody else?
If it's been hurtful and not right
Well,
for
but you're
a
not
long
deliberately
time.
trying to hurt the person. You're
But
not
you know you
deliberately-
are.
Well, that happens a lot in life. I mean, you can go through life without hurting other people.
Well, there's quite a difference.
It's
in
interesting.
A
Let's
casual
say-
hurting
Let's say
and a
mother
hurting
says, you
of
know, if
somebody
you go out,
that you
if
could.
you elope with that guy, I'm gonna have a heart attack or something like that. You
Well,
know,
on
and the
this- on
person
this
decides
on the
that
same-
they owe it to themselves, that they should,
Hey, but
and
on
if the
the-
mother decides, you know, to.
No, that's
But
quite
right on the
different.
program, she described to the other one that she told her daughter, if you divorce him, I'll never talk to you again. Remember the
Yeah.
influence she felt she had to have? My
This is what-
grandchildren.
this is that
it
woman
was
that
on
got
the
left?
Yeah, on the same thing. She
Well,
because
no, this was the one
Wait, the
who
one
was
that got
left.
left or the
The
one
woman
that
that got
left?
left. Right, got
Got
left.
left.
Right.
The one who was so attached to her children.
Right.
Okay.
So the four of them were out to dinner, and each one was telling about their life and their children. This one had a husband, son, a doctor, and my other one is divorced. Oh, so she gave her to say, I told my daughter, the other one, said, if you ever dare divorce him, and this is 10 years ago, she said, and you dare walk out, I'm through with you, I'll never talk to you again. You're gonna leave my grandchildren without a father? You're gonna do this? No. So she's trying to show Let's see, after 10 years, they're still together and they're very happy, and he says in Jewish, don't believe a word. It was done very, but I remember I had somebody come to talk to me, and it was an interesting story. This man, he must have been my age, I guess, and he has 2 grown children, and he has 3 or 4 grandchildren, and his life with his wife, according to him, because I didn't meet his wife, has been nil for years. As a result, he has developed many of his own personal hobbies. He went into sculpture, into this. One day, I don't know, why he just hit me with a question. What happens when you divorce somebody? What happens to the person? I said, that's up to the person, and you know, he said, do they get hurt? He said, rejection is a very long, even if really we have nothing in common, you know, except he said Saturday night we both get dressed, and we go out with our friends, and it makes us a married couple. He said, other than that, believe me, there's nothing there. It hasn't been for years. So I said, well, of course there's going to be rejection, and if there's rejection, there's going to be hurt. He said, well, then I guess I can't do it. I said, you can't, why can't you do it? He said, I was taught, and I took those words, for better or worse, and no, I can't. She gave me too many years. I said, so you're both going to spend the rest of your lives, maybe you have another 10, 15 years, maybe you can both get. He said, well, I'll busy myself in my work. You know, and that was his. But do you think that's fair? No, I don't.
To whom?
To either one of them.
Oh, to her it
To
was.
either one of them.
To her it was. She had a,
she's miserable
she had,
too.
no, she's not
That's what I
miserable.
said. I
You
think.
don't know.
But
No,
she had the status of being a married
Maybe each
woman.
one doesn't want to divorce the other one because they're afraid that the
No,
other one feel
because-
rejected, but really, they would jump for joy.
Not,
if
no,
you-
no,
you
no,
don't
no,
know.
no.
Chances
No,
are
no.
not.
The chances are that the man, yes, because it's still a man's world. And there are more widows than there are
If a
widowers.
relationship is not satisfying, if one loses its
So
No,
purpose.
you give up your whole
it's
I mean,
life.
not-
was it to
it's
pay the
not-
rent? I mean,
It isn't, no, it isn't satisfying, not at the point where you hate each other. It's just that
Well, this
the-
sounds-
there's
no, this
nothing,
sounds-
There's nothing
This-
there.
there's
It's not
nothing
making
exciting.
May as well have a
but for
roommate.
her, there is something there. She has a routine. She has a home, she cleans, she shops, she cooks. Even in this one, he was depressed and he didn't want to eat. She said, look, she said, I'm going to the hairdressers and I put the salad and the cottage cheese in the refrigerator for you, right? She has a pattern of living. She's still catering to him. She's still taking care of him.
Because she was always instilled, that's her role in life.
Right, so
But
she,
could choose to do something else.
no, there's nothing else she wants
Maybe
to
if she
do.
was relieved of all this, maybe.
No, what would she do with herself?
Look, that's not for me to say.
No,
but,
I mean, he had somebody else, but she wasn't looking for anybody in
So maybe
particular.
she'll go and look now.
Read
Some
it.
other guy wants to be catered to.
There's plenty of them around.
That's right. Wants
So
to
Helen,
be,
what were, if you
cook,
were the
clean
other,
for-
what if you were not the woman being left? What if you were the woman with a new passion?
With what?
With the new passion, the new love, the other lady?
The lady's married.
Well, she felt that it was wrong. That's why she ran away from it.
yeah.
But she came back with a different attitude. She said, I saw my picture hung in my children's house and I was there, that's it. But in other words, even from her children, she couldn't get enough in life to give her any kind of satisfaction. You know, so she went, she visited, and
So did she ask anyone of her children what they thought?
They
her
were all
children were
there.
there.
Everybody was
Her children
opposed.
were
They were
quiet.
horrified.
Her children were quiet.
Oh, the other ones.
And the husband, her husband, recognized that perhaps life wasn't, you know, in any way fulfilling to her or anything that, you know.
He was not as upset as the wife, as the other wife. Right.
So it just shows
Because
you-
he had a hobby, stamps, and he played gin all day long. I mean, she never saw him anyway, I mean, you know, and he never saw her, so his life would go on the way it was.
Well, it
The
goes
one that I
back.
was most concerned with was the other one,
Well, it
who
goes
really had
back to
very
what the
little
role
to
of a woman
offer.
is in a society, and
the
that's what
point.
it goes
That's
back
the
to.
point.
How
but-
women are
but
thought of
she
in
is,
this
well, but
But
she was no different than she ever was, right? She hadn't changed overnight.
Except that leaves you very vulnerable. If
But
your whole
it's
life
in
revolves around
years.
someone else, and that's all your life
Yeah,
is,
but he
then
didn't
you're very
object to it
vulnerable.
up till now.
No, but I'm just saying it leaves you in a very vulnerable position. Even if he dies or divorce, I mean, she still has to rebuild her life.
Not really, I mean, some
let's
people
take it
never
Let's
rebuild
take
their
it from the
life.
point
Well,
of
but I
what
mean-
Annie just
No,
said.
no, of
What
course
if-
she-
What if he died?
Right. She would still have to,
What would
Right.
be, what?
She wouldn't be
She'd get all
rejected.
his money.
She wouldn't be
wasn't a
rejected,
question
although
of-
you know as a grievance counselor that part of grieving is the feeling that he rejected me, right?
That's he, but this is not what, I don't think she was so upset with what he did to her as what society and the people around will think. And to
Is
me,
that how
that's-
it was represented in
Well,
the
to me
play?
it
So
was,
it's
to me
more,
it was, but I know Helen picked it up differently.
so you don't think she took it as a personal rejection,
Of
that
course
she
she
was
did.
inadequate?
Of course she took
She
it,
had
not
to.
that she
I
was.
mean, it-
Personal rejection and the, are you really going to do this to me? How could you do this to me? Not because she even said,
I love you.
you know, you're hurting me because I love you. Was never a word of that, but the question is, how could you do this to me? At
Well,
my
how could
age,
you?
you know?
Right,
Right,
after
you know
so
me.
many years, how could you? I agree with her. I mean,
well, do you think there's something wrong with the relationship where one person thinks like they're serving another person and then the
no,
other person
no,
owes them
no,
something in
because that's what a
return?
relationship is.
Well, so then they should be
That
even.
the
He
point-
served
the
her, she
point-
served him,
We
so
had a-
nobody owes
At the
anybody
singles group,
anything.
we had a very interesting
Nobody's left owing anybody something.
discussion this week. What is the difference of a commitment if you're married or if you got a boyfriend and you're living with it? At our age, does the commitment change? Would you walk out on a guy because he became ill? You're living with him, he's your boyfriend, you're not married. Or if your husband got ill or so on, would you walk out on him? It's the same kind of a thing.
It's
What
not
is
the
it-
same kind of
What
thing.
does commitment mean? You're talking about commitment.
Right, and I
Yeah.
have seen this,
Well.
seen this in older people. And the
Yeah.
commitment is exactly the same. She said, I can't walk out on
Right.
him,
So
right?
You're right.
How
Okay.
can I,
Okay.
right?
But some people feel very strongly. That's why they won't remarry, because they don't want to be held in by the so-called commitment in quotes.
Rita, what do you do?
Oh, I run a senior center.
A social worker, you know them,
I'm
Karen?
on one of those clinics.
For those do-gooders.
Yeah. I wonder.
You wonder sometimes, that's what you said.
Yeah. You begin to wonder.
And you learn, Abby, that the problems of people are the same at 20 as they are at 60.
Not quite.
Well,
Not quite.
and what, how
Now
do
that
you?
You just, it becomes a little bit more frantic when you get older because you don't have all that time. When you're young,
Well, that alone is a big difference.
well,
believe
when you're
me.
young, you figure, well, if
know.
it's not this year, it'll be next year, it'll be the year
That's a
after.
big difference.
That's a big difference.
When you get older, it's now or never,
It's
right?
your whole mental attitude is different,
Yeah,
that's
but the
right.
problem is
That's
the
why
same.
he said it's now or never, let's get married, because, I don't know,
But the
maybe we
problem
have-
is the same,
Problem is
is the same, right?
there. The problem of loneliness, if you're young or you're old, doesn't
The
matter.
problem is
But how
that
you
it
approach
gets,
it is
it's
different.
very difficult
And
for
what
people
what
to
you decide
have,
to do about it.
it's
Okay.
very difficult for people to have relationships. And it gets more and more difficult in our society. For instance, we live on a block, and we talk about it very often. We used to live in Williamsburg, right, which is, I guess, a working class area, right? And there used to be 2 big apartment houses in the corner, and the rest of the block, which was a fairly long block, was all private homes. one family, parlor floor, basement, first floor, second floor, but they were considered one family houses. In many cases, they were converted to two. Now, you went out in the evening, and they had stoops. Every stoop was full of people, right? You knew everybody in your neighborhood. Everybody would talk to each other, right? I could live here 1,000 years, and except knowing the people on either side of me well enough to say, how are you? That's about it. Families get tinier and tinier, right? At one time, I know in my generation, if somebody got married, she looked for an apartment around the corner, across the street, or in the same house as her mother lived. And the mother wound up with having all her children living in that same area, right?
Did you do that?
No, no, because things were already beginning to change, but I didn't, but I
Your
still
mother
lived
lived
pretty,
upstairs for most of your life?
well, that's when she bought the house during the war. But the point
Oh,
is,
we
and
grew
I
up, my
resented
grandmother-
that, right?
Oh,
But the
she owned
point
the
is,
house, and we lived on the first floor, she lived on the second floor.
but the point is that I didn't run to Washington DC or Oregon or Portland or anything like that, which is what happened to my generation already, you know, with the people who
Your
had
children
children,
went on.
right? Even though they may not live across the street, they lived in the same city, right? Where they could be in touch with each other. But today, this whole family structure, you read a book and you find that Pesach, my God, you couldn't get into the house because all the cousins and the uncles and the aunts and everybody was at the Seder, right?
That's what I'm for. I'll see.
How many people have such Seders or such get-togethers today?
We did when I was growing up.
Huh?
We did when I was growing up.
That's right.
Well, you had 6 kids though.
Yeah,
I made a full family.
and we invited the entire neighborhood.
Right. I remember when I gave birth to Annie, there was a woman who, this child was a complete accident. As a matter of fact, when she went to the doctor, he told her she had a tumor. So she gave birth to this tumor. Now she had something like 4 or 5 boys, and this one was a girl.
Oh, that was a nice tumor.
So the oldest boy at that time was about 15 or 16, so he came in to report that they had bought a big barrel of beer, that everybody in the neighborhood was invited, and that when she was coming home, there were going to be a big block party to celebrate the birth of this sister that they finally got. And I said, my God, how many people today, you know, would have that kind of a party, right? Where you invite, and it,
Out of town.
no, well, they didn't live out of town,
No, I'm
but it was,
Not in the city.
but it was like
Yellow Springs, you had a party like
it was
that.
like a
Right.
cohesive Italian neighborhood, you know, where everybody knew everybody, and the joy of one was the joy of everybody,
Yeah,
right?
but family life was always good.
That's right, that's what I say.
That's her
So,
point.
You still
so
see
today,
the-
it's very,
You
very
know,
difficult.
When can you see that Christmas Eve,
Yeah.
when they get together to eat? I never even knew that you got together. I thought you always got together for Christmas dinner, but you get together Christmas Eve. That's the big meal. Christmas Day is not the big meal. And if you saw what they spend on a meal for that night
Wonder what they
before,
spend just for fish?
just for fish, I'm talking, I stood with my mouth open. And they still, in some areas, the kids will come from far and wide. It's an established, you know, thing, and it's what kind of cohesive family you have that determines this kind of thing.
Well, but I imagine even there, it's getting less and less
Well,
and
it may
less.
eventually, but there's still plenty of areas where you will see this. And where is it? In the small working class families where this becomes, you know, not these middle class higher echelon. They have no time or they don't want somehow to be part of this.
We have some friends, Helen, you guys met them, Pam and Dave Greco, they're Catholic, and they have a very big extended family in the area where we live. Both of their parents live there, and their children, all the kids and all the siblings and their spouses and their children all live there. And a couple weeks ago, we went to the birthday party of our friend's daughter. She's 2 years old, and all of the husband, all of his brothers and sisters were there, and their wives, their spouses and children, and it was at their parents' house. So it's like had the grandparents, the parents, the kids, and everybody was all there.
Well,
It
that's
was really
unusual
fun.
today.
It was really neat.
I'm sure that most of your friends live nowhere near their families. That
Most of them, that's true, but this particular
they're
couple
living in that
lives with
area
their.
for whatever reason, the job or whatever. But I am only judging, by the kind of books that are being published, by the kind of radio programs and TV programs that you have. The biggest problem today seems to be personal relations, right? And if somebody will always get up and say, well, you gotta communicate.
Well, you do.
That becomes the catchword. You gotta
Well,
communicate.
sure, Helen,
truth
that's
is-
the truth.
And what happened with
Truth is,
those two couples that we were talking about earlier? They hadn't been communicating for many years.
That's
and
right.
There it was all gone.
Well, so
the
somebody
next time they
writes a
communicated,
book.
someone left.
Somebody writes a book, and she's made a fortune on the book. I don't know what her name is, Callum, something like that. And the theme of the book is the difference, the way men and women express